All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Bottom Line Podcast. So we say what we mean, and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line. Today's guest, Senior Director at World Financial Group, better known as WFG, Mr. Senior Director of Marketing. He's a marketing director. Let's get that right? Marketing director, okay? Mr. Mckensy Long, right, over at WFG out in Las Vegas, Nevada, right? Now, I reached out to Mckensy here because, well, this is a straight shooter. You could just tell by the content that he posts, right? Him and I was looking for, I kind of look now for content to disagree with, because I think that's a really good place to have a genuine conversation, right, with people. But at the same time, it's kind of like, let's just be objective here about the conversation. Let's not be too subjective about the conversation. And I think it's a good way to, like, opposites attract sometimes, right? And it's a way to see if we share similar values, but we're coming from different sides of the spectrum, right? But my problem with Mr. Mckensy Long here is that I agree with everything he posts, like everything. And I'm like, yep, I back that. I second that, right? I'm co-signing that. So wanted to get you on here, Mckensy, just to get an idea of, how you've been adjusting to all these changes, with the pandemic, doing business. Also over at WFG, you're a senior marketing director. So I kind of just wanted to learn a little bit about how you market in an environment where everything is digital now, and there's some regulation around your marketing, so we can, share that with other small business owners and entrepreneurs, right? So I think that'll be a good place for us to start. How are things going? How have you been with everything going on?
I appreciate you, Dennis, because I felt the same way. And it's interesting. I think one of the things I see a lot of people doing lately is they only surround themselves with people that agree with them, right?
Yeah.
Which is probably the worst thing you can do.
Right.
So I appreciate it, because I'm kind of like you, is I want to look to see what other people are thinking and feeling. And, we were having a little conversation about the psychology aspect of it, and that I want to know why somebody feels that way. So I totally agree with you as far as that is. And I appreciate you for the invitation. And again, I loved all of your content and the things that you talk about as well. It's unique to find somebody that feels similar about a lot of things that you do as well, especially coming from different backgrounds on different parts of the country and all of that stuff as well. So I'm excited for this one to get.
Yeah, definitely, man. So how are you doing? How are you doing out there with the in Vegas, as a matter of fact? How are things in Vegas? Like, what was that like with the pandemic, first of all?
It was interesting seeing the strip with nobody on it. And a couple of days, like, everything was turned off, no power on any of the buildings. And so that was interesting, but totally different. I'm not usually on the strip anyway, so it didn't make a big difference for me.
Yeah.
It was definitely a change. I'm sure in New York it was very different too.
Oh, forget it. Yeah, it's like the Twilight Zone. You don't, there's no reason to go anywhere. Restaurants, I think the thing that drives New York is the restaurant culture, right?
Yeah.
And when the restaurants started shutting down, more people started going upstate New York or to Jersey or to Long Island, because most people are in New York just for business, right? Then you have the people who are the real New Yorkers, right? Who, we kind of know what's to do on, I don't know, like we got hit with Sandy a while ago, like Hurricane Sandy. And Hurricane Sandy was like, that was years ago. I was like maybe a teenager, right? And everybody just go outside. Let's see the hurricane. You know what I mean? It was like, let's go see the hurricane, right?
Couldn't do that with Corona, huh?
Yeah, you couldn't keep people in their homes at one point with the virus. It was like they had to be locked down. So it's like, what do you do, right? There's nothing to do. So these things, these podcasts, these conversations, virtual like relationships, they're becoming more prevalent now. You know what I mean? And it doesn't really matter where you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely love the food out in New York. I totally agree with you on that. You guys are known for your food. You guys got some really good food out there. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. So let's talk a little bit about okay, so Vegas is shut down, right? And were you the kind of guy that was going into the office a lot? Were you doing like work?
Yeah, other than a week because we were forced to. So I have space with some other guys that are also in WFG. They're also marketing directors. So we have a pretty big office here where we have some combined areas. And a couple of them have spouses that are very sensitive, or people in their life that are a little bit older that they're taking care of, and they just wanted to be careful. So there was about a week where I didn't come into the office and I was working from home, but other than that, never really skipped a beat. Now, we were obviously being safe and having people work remotely and that kind of stuff, but I did not like working from home. I know a lot of people like it, but
Right.
you know, when you're an entrepreneur, it's hard to make that definition of when am I at work and when am I at home if you never
Right.
leave my house. So
Yeah,
I was
for sure.
working kind of all over the place, and then you get distracted with the dogs and everything else that you have going on around the house. So I didn't care for it. I like being at the office because I can separate my work time from my home time.
Yeah. What
How
about
about you?
meetings? Yeah, I mean, for me, I never really liked being outside. I'll be honest with you. Like, I need to be away from people for a certain period of time so I can appreciate them again.
Okay, that's how you
That,
recharge.
yeah, right.
Okay.
So I'm like the ambivert, they call it, right? I'm somewhere in between. So before COVID hit, I was already doing the virtual thing, right?
Mm,
Because with the coaching business, I was really trying to scale it to a point where I can get across the country through, technology. Because I think right around that time, I said it to a lot of people. Andrew Yang opened my eyes to like where we're headed with automation,
right.
right? And I think I already knew where we were headed, but he kind of made it real for me because I
Mm,
saw him running on that ticket, right? And that's what he was really, highlighting was how automation was going to change work for like blue collar workers. So I was like, oh, okay, let me just hop on that wagon now, right? And start virtual and start making my business more virtual.
nice.
So I understood like, where we were headed, but I just didn't understand the pace that it was going to happen in, right? So COVID kind of like accelerated that whole process. And I'm like, well, I miss the networking events. I miss the lunch meetings.
Mm,
I miss those kinds of things. I miss the after work crowds. You
mm.
know what I mean? Like those would be like where I go to where there are crowds of people that I can like just kind of vibe with, right? And you don't get that anymore. So it's like
Not at all.
it's lame now. Like I don't even there's not really any real networking events or anything going on really where it's like people are not thinking first about COVID.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that's just now starting to come back. But I agree with you. So we had implemented Zoom, but the challenge was if I talked to anybody about an appointment, they wanted to meet in person
Yep.
pre-COVID, right? Like
Yep.
95% of them didn't know how to log on to Zoom, didn't know how to do a digital meeting, any of
Right.
that stuff.
Right.
And so what was great for us, what really advanced us was that we already had the technology in place. We just didn't catch up with technology yet. And then all of a sudden now everybody knows how to get on Zoom. Everybody would rather be
Right.
on Zoom than come to the office. And so now it's the exact opposite. We probably run 95% of our appointments digitally
Right.
versus doing it. And then it was like, wow, instead of being able to run 6, 7, 8, 9 appointments a day, I can do twice that and save the time of driving around. And then there were some days where it was like I talked to somebody in California, somebody in New York, somebody in Canada, somebody in the middle of the country, and it was like, wow, I would never be able to do that before. I would be considering hopping on planes and
Yep.
traveling around the country, and now all of a sudden we don't have to do that. That's the part I miss. I miss the travel aspect.
Yeah.
So we just got back from San Diego and then spent a little time out in Georgia back at the home office too. So it was nice to start getting the traveling back going, but
Nice.
it definitely changed a lot of things
Yeah.
as far as that goes.
Are you feeling this now I think the new phrase now is Zoom fatigue. Have you heard that one yet?
I think it's just normal appointment fatigue.
All right. Yeah.
At least, I don't know. That's what it feels like to me. But coming from an era of having to run in-person appointments and drive time, like I don't feel as much as the Zoom fatigue because I don't know. I think it saves a lot of time and it's easier. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I'm like,
And now people
yo,
are used to it. Like I feel like we're almost actually in the same room together. After 4 or 5 minutes, you kind of forget that you're talking to a computer.
right, right. Just the eye contact, right? I think
Yeah.
we've gotten soft as a people because like I'm from back like let me tell you something, right? I'm a manual labor kind of guy. You know what I
Same.
mean?
Yep.
Right? Like hard
Engineering, cars. Yep.
right? So it's like for now you hear Zoom fatigue and you're like, really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
What are you tired of?
What are you tired of? I'm
You're
gonna
looking
give you,
at your phone all day anyway. What are you
yeah,
talking about?
like, come on, what's going on here? And I don't even want to like. I think I feel bad for the generation that's coming after us. You know what I mean?
Oh gosh, could you imagine?
Yeah, because it's like that's the lazy culture now. Oh, I'm tired of being on the computer, and it's like, nah, bro, nah. Let me give you a sledgehammer and show you how to get tired real quick, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so how did you? Okay, let's just. You're a guy like me, right? And I told you, I was like, I saw one of the posts that you posted where you was like, you went through your list of jobs that you've done in the past, right? And they were all like hard work, like man making work, right? Like, so it's like, okay, how did you end up behind a computer screen? How did you end up behind a computer screen? How did you end up doing marketing? And how did you end up at WFG as a senior director?
Yeah, that's wow, that's a lot of questions all in one. I think I kind of had the perfect combination growing up, and I don't know, I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but like you can take any good or bad situation and turn it to what kind of drives you, right? And so my dad was entrepreneurial, but he didn't know how. Like he didn't have the drive behind it. You have to have a lot of persistence, a lot of patience, a
Right.
lot of sticking ability, and which my mom had, but she was an employee. She was a school teacher. So I kind of got the best of both worlds, if you were, or at least I absorbed from both of those spots where I was like, man, I can't imagine working somewhere forever. And then
Yeah.
of course, you start getting older and you're working at these places and you're like, I felt like I could excel and outwork people. I didn't have any natural talent. I wasn't great at sports. I wasn't
Right.
great at anything really, but I was willing to outwork people.
Yeah.
So I think I just took that perspective, the vision of my dad, because I started doing some eBay stuff with him. My dad had this amazing way of finding something that somebody would throw away, clean it up a little bit, and make two, three, 400 times profit on it, right?
Nice. Yeah.
So I started absorbing some of that, and I saw, wow, like I just had random things that I would do all the time. If we had a motorcycle shop here in Vegas that was shutting down, Ride Now came in and bought all of them, and so they were selling all their products super cheap. And I found this website online that was selling all their stuff, so I was like, oh, cool, I can buy it pennies on the dollar, and then turn around and put it on eBay and sell it.
Yeah.
So I was just always looking for unique ways to kind of make money because I like nice stuff. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I started working at 15, 14 and a half, 15.
Really?
Yeah. And I just had these great people that were in my life that were entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And I liked their lifestyle. I liked that they were married and they kept their relationships with their kids. And, it just that household aspect of being around them and them being able to build their family, I didn't see that with anybody that was an employee. They didn't have that ability to do that. So
Yeah.
that was really kind of what had my eyes open to some kind of business aspect.
Yeah. Let's go back just a little bit, right? You mentioned your dad. My dad was a big influence on me too, right? Because I saw his work ethic, and I think which was really important, and we kind of get away from this now because we have like this more laid back digital culture, right? Kind of go back to the Zoom fatigue thing, where yeah, it's a lot of trial and error, it's a lot of figuring it out, right? But it does make you. It does like I guess it tests your ability to stick to it, right? That stick to itiveness, right? So you have one side where your mom was like an employee, your dad was entrepreneurial. What made you stick to the entrepreneurial side to a point where you're at now? Like what was it for you?
Well, it took me 14 years of not excelling in the employee side.
Yeah.
And becoming an engineer, I was working for the county, so I worked for the government.
Okay.
And if you want to talk about not being able to excel
Yeah.
based on your work ethic, the government is a huge place where if you just want to put in your time and wait for somebody to die, you can move up. But
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's how you excel there, not by how much you're actually able to perform, which was against I don't want to say my morals or my standards, but like I
Yeah.
like working. I'm not a guy that can go sleep in my truck and pretend like I'm putting in time and
Right.
getting paid for that. Like that messes with my psyche. I don't feel good about that of like
Yeah.
getting paid to not work. So that environment didn't work well for me. And so I'm just stacking all of these years of like not being able to get ahead, paycheck to paycheck, whether I was making good money or not. I just really didn't feel like I was getting what I was worth. And In all of these places, I felt like I brought a ton of value, but I was getting paid for the position, not necessarily for the value that I brought. And then with my dad's side of seeing the entrepreneurship, and then I was kind of forced into it. So I was doing engineering for the city, and 2009 2010 happened, right? And so they're letting all the engineers go, and I have so I have some money left over, and but nobody's hiring engineers,
Right.
and I had this Trans Am, and it was like a 10-second car, so it's supercharged, low miles, and I couldn't sell the thing. So I'm like getting money out of my 403B because I had been let go. So I'm doing what you're not supposed to do and what I don't advise my clients to do, right? But I took my money out.
Right.
And then I invested that into a business. But so I'm trying to sell this car, right? And I can't sell it. The car by itself should be worth 15, 20 grand. Plus it's got 15, 20 grand worth of parts in. I can't sell the thing for 15, right? So I pull it apart and I sell all the parts and I get 10 or 12 grand. And then I put the car back together and I sell the car for 15 or so grand. I'm like, okay, maybe I could do this for a living. And so I just started flipping cars. I started building cars, and then people were coming to me and going, hey, well, I saw that you can do this and you built that car. And I had a turbo Camaro at the time, a Hugger Orange turbo Camaro. So I was kind of already in that group. And so people were just asking me to work on their cars. So I kind of just turned that into a job, or turned that into a business. And so that just kind of fanned the flames for everything. That by the time I was introduced to WFG, I became a client first. And then after about 4 years of breaking my back, working on cars, my body deteriorating, self-medicating with alcohol so I could sleep at night because I was in so much pain. Like laying down hurt, sitting hurt, everything hurt all of the time. And so, you just kind of, the great thing about people, and I think the human species, is that we can adapt. And we can get comfortable in pain. But the challenge is I saw that I couldn't do that forever. And if I did, how broken I would be, how miserable I would be. And so being around the WFG group, I was coming into the office doing my financial stuff. And I'm watching these guys and they're making $250,000, $500,000, some of them millions of dollars a year. But more importantly, they're leaving in the middle of the day to go watch their daughter's softball game. And I was just blown away. Like, how do you have time for your family and you can make more money than I've ever seen anybody make before? Even if I could just replace my income and have the flexibility of time, which I didn't have in the performance shop, I was like, man, I will figure it out. And that was just after 4 years of being a client and seeing that, I'm like, okay, because I heard some of these guys talk and I'm like, this what? Like,
right. Yeah. They've
no
got
offense to anybody, but I'm like, that one hardly speaks English. That one, like, no background in anything. So if I just apply myself and I can replace my 6-figure income, then I would be happy just doing that. And so kind of just made the leap.
You know what? That's you mentioned two things, right? So like one thing is the stress and the toll that it takes on your body to do manual labor, right? That's the physical, right? Then you have the mental, right? Where it's kind of like you're not really sure where you stand in terms of like trying to grow, to excel, both as a person, but then also, to contribute, I guess, right? To a cause, maybe, right? First your own and then maybe a greater cause. But then there's this matter of fulfillment, right? Where you're like, there's this void that needs to be filled, and you can fix a million freaking cars. But until you fix, like, I guess you started doing it for yourself, then you're doing it for other people. So there you are with the contributing part, right? You're helping people out, you're fixing cars, you're having fun, you're doing something you like to do, right? But then there's this
adrenaline rush, so you get that part of it too,
Right, because you got to drive the cars, test cars and all, right? But then there's this part, it sounds like you were missing some kind of fulfillment, and it was probably because you weren't doing with your time what you wanted to do with your time, right? And so that's where you saw those other people, I guess, as a client over at WFG, you started to see them recapturing a lot of their time to do the things that gave them a little bit of fulfillment, like spend time with their family. But then the weird part about it, and I'm going through this as I'm thinking about it for myself too, because I did manual labor, I did construction, and the culture was go out after a job. You get to the job site at like 5 a.m. All right. You pack your breakfast, you pack your lunch, right? You sit on the sidewalk and you just like, have your lunch on the sidewalk, and it's the culture, right?
Hmm.
And you get back to work, and you're working at least a better part of 12 hours in a day, right? Okay. If you're hungry, like me, I was starving. So I was putting the work in, right? So it's like 10 to 12 hours a day. And then after work, you go hang out at the bar and, you have fun, meet girls, talk to your guys, just have a good time, play pool, the culture, right?
Yeah.
And, but then there's still that void.
Mm.
There's still that void. And you were drinking, you were self medicating because of the pain, but I was drinking because I was bored.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
I did that too. I think it turned into also medicating for the pain. But
Yeah.
because there's what else do you do? And most of the people that you're around, exactly like you said, that's normal, right?
Yeah.
And so what's weird is like when you stop drinking, when you start putting your life in order, when you start getting your financial life in order, when you start building a business, what was weird to me was like that's when I got the questions. Nobody questioned me about self-medicating with alcohol. Nobody questioned me about drinking every night. Nobody questioned me about not
Hmm.
being good financially. But when I started putting my life in order, that's when I started getting the questions of, oh, well, are you in AA? Is that why you don't drink anymore? Like it's so weird, you know? Nobody asked if I was an alcoholic because I drank
Right.
every day and had to have 2, 3 beers when I got home.
Right.
But
Right.
then you start fixing things and people start to think that that's weird.
Yeah.
And,
So
and
So I'm wondering with you, okay, so like, were you trying to recapture more of your time, or were you trying to make more money when you made that switch?
In the beginning, I was single, right? So part of it, I would probably say the huge part of it was the money aspect.
All
And I
right.
didn't know why. And I think I was attracted to the independence, but I couldn't have put that in words at the time,
Yeah.
right? So I just thought that money would make me happier, but I didn't like money doesn't make you any happier. Having more stuff doesn't make you happier. And like you said,
Right.
that fulfillment aspect,
Hmm.
I think most people are trying to fill that fulfillment with stuff, right? I would buy new cars every year or every two. I had eight
Yeah.
cars at my house at the time, also because I was working on them. But
Right.
and the alcohol and going out and doing pool and meeting girls and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It's
Yeah.
all to fix that stuff that's inside, but you can't fix inside stuff with outside stuff. We'll fix
Right.
inside stuff with inside stuff, but we
Right.
can cover it, we can mask it, and we build this new habit of I'm covering these feelings that I have with outside stuff.
Yeah.
And then before you look at it, 20, 30, 40 years have gone by and you haven't done anything really with your life. And you
Yeah.
kind of, you, you were alive, but you never really lived.
Yeah.
And so I was seeing that in the people that I was around in engineering and in the car aspect where
Yep.
maybe they made 100, 150,000 a year. So they had made it in societal
Yeah.
views,
Yeah.
but
Right.
they were
Right.
divorced multiple times. They
Oof.
didn't talk to their kids.
Yeah.
It was not a successful life. So going back to that question about like switching from the employee to the entrepreneur, I'm looking at all these employees and I'm like, the success ratio is so small. It's literally doesn't exist. How many employees do you know that actually make it and have a good life, both with their family, with their kids, also be able to retire, travel
Right.
the world, do that kind of stuff? And
Hmm.
I'm weighing these two things. Then you look at the entrepreneurial side, I'm like, you at least have a shot. Yeah, maybe it's like 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100,
Yeah.
but that's a way higher ratio than being an employee. Those people never make it. At least I have a shot over here.
Yeah. Tell me about the people side, right? Because I hear, and I don't know if you tell me because you're the engineer, right? So like I've heard that engineers, and I have a cousin or two who are engineers, and I can say that it's true. It's a stereotype, but for those guys, it's true. They say engineers are more about things and less
Mm.
about people, right? They're good at fixing things, but less at, the people side, right? You
Yeah.
seem to be really good at both. So like you're fixing cars and you made a living out of it, but then you also have the side where you're really good with people,
Mm. I
right?
had to develop that. So I remember
Okay.
having, yeah, with my mentor at the beginning, I remember having that conversation because I'm like, look, man, with cars, there's only a couple things that go wrong. Like it
Right.
doesn't have spark, it doesn't have fuel, or it doesn't have
Right.
oxygen. Other than that, it runs. Like, tell me
Okay.
about these people thing because
Right.
they like you know this too, right? They say they want to do something, they
Right.
can do something,
Right.
but they don't do it.
Right.
And that's like it did make sense to me. So I
Yeah.
had to learn that people aspect of you, like you mentioned with the psychology. I want to know
Yeah.
why people don't do these things that they say they want to do.
Yeah.
Why do they have all of this potential? Why can they accomplish all of these things? And people have done incredible things. Why aren't they doing it? And I kind of combined that aspect of can I make a systematized process of taking somebody who doesn't that has potential, but they're not living to their potential. And how can I push them beyond those things? So I think I took that aspect of my dad being able to take something that was undervalued and give it value. And I did that with people. Like I can see somebody's undervalued, they're making 30, 40, 50, maybe $100,000 a year in their job, but they're worth more than that. So how can I polish it a little bit? How can I train them? How can I develop them to now they're worth quarter million, $500,000, $1 million a year, and be able to do that. So I think I took that kind of from my dad, but I applied it to the people aspect.
Yeah, I love that because that's a lot of what I do with my coaching
Right.
work, right? It's like being, and the person knows that they have the potential. They just don't know how to use it. They don't know how to direct it towards their a particular specific outcome, right?
Yep. That
So
and the rest of the world is telling them that that's not normal.
yeah,
So I think that's the biggest battle is they want to accomplish something great.
right,
But in our society, even like we almost vilify those people. Like I mentioned earlier with that Jeff Bezos post and somebody being, and okay, whatever, you don't like Bezos, whatever. But
right.
it seems like anybody who's wealthy, we vilify them to make ourselves feel better about ourselves that we're not accomplishing something. And so society has just got normal with that.
Yeah,
So now you're telling somebody to become that, but they've got these mental blocks of who they think a successful person is,
right.
and that it's somehow bad. And now they're hesitant in the steps that they're taking to be able to get there because they're contradicting themselves mentally.
Yeah, yeah. You're right on the money. Are you a sports fan?
I am, but I grew up in Vegas, so we didn't have a sports team. I feel like I got gypped on that.
Right. So I ask because most people who have that mindset where it's like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to say the employee mindset because you can become like an entrepreneur and you can shine at your job if
Absolutely.
for room for growth. There's potential there. But I kind of want to say for people who know that they were cut from a different key, right? And they have this entrepreneurial mindset. And they do feel like sometimes they are vilified, like you said, right? But think about the MVP on a basketball team, right? Or the MVP on a football team, right? Like the quarterback. You know what I mean? You're still part of the team, right? But you're the leader of the team, and that's the person that most people praise, right? And so it's like when I think of it like that way, I'm like, you know what? You can be part of the team. You can be the one that leads the team, like a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan, right? Or like a Peyton Manning, right? You can be that guy, but you gotta want it. You gotta want to see the other people win. You know what I mean? You want to see your team win, and they'll help you win. I think what you get from people now, and this is what I feel like is really hard with this pandemic, is most people are looking for anything they can get right now. Just give me a job. I'll do the job. I got to pay my bills. I got to put food on the table. Just give me a job. But what they realize, and I think the market realizes this too, is that wages are low. And because wages are low, they can't increase the interest rates, right? So, yes, people are getting jobs. Yes, people are getting employed, but they're not getting paid enough. So they're working 2 or 3 jobs. And it goes right back to where we started, where they start to feel overwhelmed. They might have physical ailments, right? They can't find the fulfillment and they're overworked. So like kind of like what you said in the beginning, you got the work ethic from your mom and your dad. You can outwork anybody, which most Americans think they can outwork people, right? We're going to work because we got to provide. But that level of there's a disconnect between what you are doing and what you could be doing, right? And that's where I guess where you come in and you're able to identify that potential in somebody, in an individual, and help them see it, right? So, okay, let's think about where you're at now, because there's 2 sides. You got your team that you're probably working with, but then you also have your clients, right? So how do you bridge the two? How do you get the two to work together? Where you have somebody who's like on your team who's not 100% sure that they can service a client, right? How do you get them to do that? To see that they can do it.
And I think that was why WFG and I were such a good fit, because I loved that team aspect. So going back to having the performance shop, and I promise you I'll get back to your answer, you might have to remind me, but with the performance shop, like you said, the fulfillment aspect. So I was fulfilled because people were coming to me and they were asking for help with their car or whatever. And so I would take care of it. Everybody's got a sob story. Everybody needs help with something at some point. So I started doing a lot of that, and it was providing me fulfillment. But the challenge was that I almost bankrupted my company because I was helping all these people. And, I'll pay you when I get my next check. I'll pay you when
Right.
I get caught back up, and in terms
Right.
of tens of thousands of dollars that I had done work on, and, not even charging them labor, but just for parts and stuff that cost me money. And so I kind of needed that aspect too. But what had happened was when I came over to WFG, I unfortunately, probably the challenge I had was I thought a lot of people owed me stuff. I had
Ah,
done so much for so many people, so I'm going to kill it here because these people will help me because I've done so much for them. And so that transition was kind of tough, but kind of like you were saying, to be able to combine those things of having the entrepreneurial aspect, and I'll probably have you re-ask the question here in a second, but kind of as I found WFG, it allowed me to have that aspect where I could actually help people. But now I'm benefiting from it, right? The better our organization does, the better our team does, the better our agency does, the more that I also profit from that too. So that time investment of helping somebody come better and be better with clients and learn how to do all of those aspects, I'm compensated, I'm bonus for that. So it was kind of just this perfect culmination because I do love people. I love watching them develop, but now I actually get rewarded for my work. Whereas before I was just kind of doing it, it was costing me money
right.
in the performance shop.
Yeah.
And so now that fulfillment aspect of it is huge. So how do I get them to get good at those things?
Yeah.
It's just repetition. It's like anything else. And I want to do a book about the challenges, the mental blocks that people have
Yeah.
with the financial industry at all. Because as soon as you mention money, there's the religious aspect of it. Of
Right.
you start getting the misquotations of from the scriptures,
Right.
and then you get the like vilified people of like Scrooge, and that's what wealthy people look like. And it's just
Right.
all of this weird stuff that happens when you start talking about money. And I want to go into the psychology aspect of that because I think we have so many mental blocks getting into becoming an entrepreneur, building wealth and saving money,
Yeah.
being a philanthropist and all those kinds of things. So it's just repetition. It just takes time as long as you practice, but it's not nearly as difficult as everybody thinks. And I ask this to my guys who get started. I'm like, do you believe in saving money? And they're like, yes. I'm like, that's all you need to know because
Right.
like, you'll figure everything else out. The products come after that. But if you don't believe in saving, then this just isn't going to be a good spot for you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you've got to be like wanting to do it, even if you're not necessarily able to do as much as you want. And then it's just going out there and showing them how to do that. And, it's a matter of moving enough people. And I think that's where the marketing aspect comes from.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just if I can move enough people, I don't need to convince anybody. I just need to find the people who want to save, that believe in saving, that believe in insurance and taking care of their family, and believe in doing these things, and just give them the resources to be able to do it
Yeah.
versus trying to convince somebody that they need to save. If you think saving is dumb and that preparing for the future is dumb, like I don't have time to
Yeah.
convince you, right? Like perfect, believe that.
Right.
You'll go through another 2008 or another 2020, and
Right.
you'll deal with the consequences, and I'm sure the government will bail you out again. But if
Right.
you actually want to be prepared and learn how to take care of these things and be sovereign in your own family and in your own household, then we'll start working on some of these other things and we'll just build that skill. But going back to you on how do you teach somebody to do that? It's a muscle just like anything else. Like how do you teach somebody to build a bicep? You just do repetitions over time. That's it.
Right. Right. Okay, so like you sound like you're tried and true, Mackenzie, right? Because like you've worked a few jobs, you've had the experience, but you've got a lot of people now who not only are they unsure of their like true potential and their ability, you hear all this talk about now, $15 minimum wage and you know what I mean? There's like I think what most people look for, and again, this is not taking a shot at the employee or the person who's working that 9 to 5. They still have to wake up early. They still have to commit. They still got to show up, right? And they still have to prove themselves and sell themselves every single day. I think what I'm trying to figure out though is with all these carrots, these proverbial carrots that we have to chase, that you see people chasing now. It's like $15 minimum wage, right? Job security, right? Health benefits. That every 2 weeks you get a paycheck. It might not be a lot, but it's consistent, right? It's like clockwork. So people get a better sense of security there, right? So and performance-based industry, there's a lot of turnover, right? And I think when it comes to security, some people like immediate sense of security, and then like maybe your clients are more looking for long-term security, right? So how do you, there's a gap there where you have like maybe a team member who wants to also have long-term security, but they have to go through that maybe 3 month, 6 month learning curve before they start making some real money, right? What are you saying to them to keep them motivated, right? And to keep them on board, right? What does that sound like? What does that conversation sound like?
I think again, it kind of boils down to the right person. Like, how do you, if you look at anything in life, like how do you keep a kid interested in football from the age of 8 through high school, through college, through
Yeah.
now getting into the NFL? Like, what's the percentage of kids that play football as a kid that actually end up in the NFL? It's probably like 0.03%.
Right.
I don't know, probably less than that. Or
Right.
basketball or anything. So I don't think it's so much what you have to say to them. I think you just have to help them see reality. So the challenge with having a job is that if you look at the real inflation, it's about 10%. Now, the government won't admit that. They won't ever say that, but it's about 10%. So if you're getting a 1, a 2, a 3% raise at your job, you are literally falling behind the curve every single year, not just on your savings, but on your ability to earn money, right? So if you look at what people were making back in the 80s, 90s, they were making about 20, I think in 93, 94, they were making about $26,000 per household, but that was one person working, mom staying at home, taking care of the kids. They could have the house, the car, everything they needed, right? And do some savings. And so now the average household is about 85,000. So it's 4 times, and housing's gone up 4 times, but now that's 2 people working, and they're, like you mentioned, they're working multiple jobs.
Yep.
So our income is only maybe doubled, whereas everything else has gone up 4 times. So no wonder why people are turning to debt. If you want to talk about being sovereign and taking care of your household and living by biblical principles, and I know that's not what this podcast is necessarily
Oh, we
about.
can make it about that though.
Okay, cool. Let's go. We might have to do another one just about that. I would love to do
Yeah.
it.
Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
Okay, good. Richest fan of Babylon. I love it. One of my favorite books, right? And so the challenge then being is, well, if we're going to actually follow biblical principles and not get into debt, how do we do that if we're not making enough money to afford things that we used to be able to afford? So of course we have to turn to debt to buy a house. Of course we have to turn to debt to buy a car because our income, our cash flow is not high enough to keep up with everything else. But then how do we then evangelize people? How do we bring them to God if we're living the same miserable life that they are, where we're debt, we're slaves to people, we can't make decisions, we can't choose what job we're working in, we can't choose if what we're doing at our job is right or not. We've got to make those sacrifices of our character and our integrity to keep our job. We know it's not right, but we can't say anything because if we lose our job, we can't keep our house and our car and we'll be out on the street. So how do we live biblical principles if we're not able to financially stay on track? And that's how most people are getting behind. And now they're caught in bondage because they're not keeping their cash flow high enough. So when you realize that, you don't have to do a lot of convincing to tell somebody they need to be an entrepreneur and they need to figure something else out. Now, how you do it is up to you. Do you stay an employee for a little while and keep that security and now build this to where you can start, becoming sovereign of your own life and start building that freedom that you have the flexibility to be able to do those things? That's fine. You might be like me and just jump all in and I'll figure it out. I'll build a parachute on my way down. How you do that, I don't know. But those people who realize reality, they realize there's no other option. So you don't have to convince them. You pull back the screen, right? It's like Wizard of Oz. You just show them the truth and you let them decide. They got to be part of their own rescue. You can't do it for them, no matter how much you love them or care about them.
Yeah. You know what's funny about what you just said is like a lot of people already know it, right? And it's kind of like they deny it. And they start to deny it because it puts them in a place where they have to take some accountability.
True.
Right?
Yeah, accountability is tough, right?
Yeah. And then the worst part is like you have to hold yourself accountable now to these habits. Like, and I pulled out that book, The Richest Man in Babylon. I read it a lot. Like I try to read it again and again and again. It's like how we said before, the more you read a book, you've changed. So the information changes also. Like it feels like you're interpreting it differently, right? So I think there are some, saving money is one thing, but then saving money so that your money makes money is another thing.
Different.
You know what I mean? So
But
it's
you got
like,
to start with step one before you get to step two.
right, you gotta crawl before you walk. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So I like that you said that because I kind of want to break that down a little bit on both sides because as somebody who's probably working, as a team member, right? And I want you to kind of like maybe you can use some marketing because I really want to get you on for some marketing ideas, right? Especially in a regulated space where you can't really do too much marketing around different investment vehicles, but you can raise awareness around the idea of investing or the idea of saving money. You know what I mean? And so I think the conversation is that we're not having, but I think more people need to have is especially with this pandemic, if we're going into these areas that are performing well right now, like insurance, lending, real estate, marketing, right? These industries are performing really well right now, right? But saving money is hard because people go so long between checks, right? When you're actually making money, unless you start, it takes at least, I think my first year of coaching, I was getting paid every 6 months or so.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And I had to like extend contracts from like 6 months to a year, right? And then I had to realize that because I was going through, and then when I started selling real estate, same thing. If I wasn't closing a deal every 6 months, you starve. Like pretty much that's it, right? You're gonna run out of money. So where do you put the money? Where do people, how do people get into the habit of saving money? Number one. And I guess how much money do you think is a good amount of money to put away? I'm a 60-40 guy, right?
Okay.
I'll put 40% away, live off of 60. You know what I mean? Like, what are some principles that you apply?
I think the principle that I would apply is probably everybody's different, right? Like, so I think you need to take that approach of figuring out what it is for that individual. And I think the biggest challenge people have sitting down with a professional financial person is that they think we're going to tell them to like live off of ramen and rice and then save all of their money, right? But a good financial plan actually includes you being happy, right? A good financial plan is how are you happy? So if we can really dive into what that fulfillment is for you, if traveling is your thing, or maybe taking your friends out to eat and you front the bill, or maybe clothes, or maybe a car, whatever it might be, then what we'll do is transfer that. So if we can cut back on everything else and triple down on the fulfillment aspect of it, now you're happy, where maybe you didn't need that $1 million house. You can live in a $500,000 house, but you're happier.
Right.
You can live with maybe you don't mind having a Hyundai instead of a BMW, but you love to travel and you want to spend $20,000 a year on travel, but that makes you happy. Then let's get rid of the things that don't make you happy, focus on the things that make you happy, and structure it to where you can still do your saving. And it should be a fulfillment plan, not just a financial plan because what most people are doing is they're robbing Peter to pay Paul all the time, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know. Do you like to travel at all?
Yeah, I like to travel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you like me where every time before you travel, some big financial thing happens?
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because it's never enough money to go travel. So you kind of like instead of going
You put it
overseas,
off.
yeah, or instead of going overseas, right? You'll just go local, like to another state.
Okay.
You know what I
Yep.
mean?
So
Yeah.
part of that plan that we'll do is we do an actual travel fund for somebody if that's what's important to them.
Yeah.
So they're putting money into that travel fund, saving, but putting it in there to spend it. So then when they go travel, if their AC broke right before they left and they had to dump 10 grand, well, they had a separate fund that now funds that. And you don't have to cut back on what makes you happy, because what most people do is they cut back on what makes them happy. Then they go back and they're not as fulfilled. So they're not working the same. They're not
Right.
like their bodies, like you mentioned, their bodies falling apart, all of those things, because they're not happy, the stress,
Right.
all of those other aspects. Whereas if they planned their money correctly, they wouldn't always be like robbing from different areas. The challenge is most people put it in one account and everything comes from that one account,
Yeah.
versus dividing that stuff out. That when I go on vacation and there's 10 grand there, I have to spend the full 10 grand. And I was not that way before. The girlfriend would want a falafel or something. I'm like, why do you got to pay $10 for a falafel? Right? Like, whereas now it's like, now I have to spend that money in that account. That's what it's set aside for. And so
Okay.
no stress, right?
Yeah.
Like not that doesn't mean everything always goes the way that it's planned, but there's a lot less stress in that aspect. So I don't know if that kind of
No, yeah, it's a fulfillment plan. What you said is make a fulfillment plan. Focus on more on
Right.
where areas fulfill you, right? And create a plan around that. And it's based on the individual.
Correct.
There's
Like
no
you're
blanket
comfortable
approach.
saving 40%, but I know some people, they couldn't spend 60 or they couldn't save 40%. Like they can't spend the 60%. They
Yeah,
might be 90-10 where they're saving 90% and only spending 10. It
right.
really just kind of depends on your income and all of those things. So
Sure.
and some people are in a position where they got to literally live off of 100% because they can't afford to save anything. And if they're not willing to have the conversation about cash flow, they're the ones that are in the most danger right now, because over the next couple of years, as we start having tax income increases, all of that stuff that starts to happen to them, they're falling behind the curve,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that are going to end up really having a hard time if they don't figure out how to bring some extra cash flow in.
Yeah, definitely. No, you're 100% right. Let's touch on marketing just a little bit, right? Like, so what are some like basic principles that I guess that, small business owners, entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, there's a soft pull away from social media now. And, social media has become more centered around business, a lot of business. It used to be more around family and friends. Now, a lot of social media platforms are just marketing, 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 advertising, advertising, advertising. Your closest friends are trying to sell you something now, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, what are some, I guess, some basic principles that we can use aside from social media when it comes to marketing?
Well, I think the nice part is you and I kind of go back to the old day where we would meet people and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I still think that's the best way to do it. You might not meet in person, but
Right.
you gotta find a way to build a relationship with somebody. That I think, and maybe this is still old school, but you gotta be able to provide value to somebody. So if I can provide value to you and you can provide value to me, then like that's a relationship that's worth investing. Where I think a lot of people, at least on social media, are trying to, and trust me, I love the fast pitch. Like, I don't like that, hey, where are you from? I'm like, it's in my profile.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
asking these weird questions.
Right. You didn't read my
What I do,
profile.
where I live, like, if I'm with somebody, all of that information is on my
On my
profile. It takes
profile.
me
Yeah.
2 seconds to read it.
Yeah.
So I don't like that slow playing it, like trying to build the friendship. If I don't need your product or service, I'm gonna tell you no up front and move on. So I
Right.
like the quick pitch sometimes, but I think that for long-term business growth, you need to provide value to somebody. And you kind of have to hope and just realize if you're giving enough value that they're going to give value back. But you kind of got to give first. At least that's been my experience. And then I think the second part of that is realizing, and this is tough to say sometimes, but sometimes there are people who are complete strangers who care more about you and will invest more in you than people that you know the most and that you love and that you've spent 15, 20, 30 years
Yeah.
growing up with.
Yeah.
I've had people who come into the business, I don't know them from anybody, and they're like, yeah, you need to talk to these 50 people. And then I have, even to this day, 8 years in the industry, and I talked to one of my friends, it's like, oh, you still doing that weird thing? And
Yeah.
like, I don't trust to give you anybody. I'm like, bro, we've known each other since middle school. Like, what are
Right.
you, like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
weird to me. So as far as the marketing goes, I think you have to have a social media presence because that's the new business card.
Hmm.
I think they've got to look up that you're a real person,
Right.
find out some things about you. But as far as a lot of what we've done trying to generate business or stuff through social media, I haven't seen a lot of that. I think you still got to go old school and build relationships and
Yeah.
invest in people. How about you? Do you feel like you can get a lot of
So I'm really invasive, man, because I go into the profile and I'm like, listen, like I'm very selective and I think it goes full circle because I'm all about identifying my ideal clients. You know what I mean?
Which is very
So,
important.
yeah, and that's part of my whole coaching business that's the idea is based on identifying your ideal clients. You can go ahead and promote Facebook ads. That's one, right? You can go ahead and sponsor ads on IG, on Instagram, on, Facebook. Go ahead and do your
And
sponsors.
everybody will take your money when you talk about marketing and advertising, right?
Everybody. Yeah,
And
right?
they have no promises, no guarantees, but they'll take your money.
It's
100%.
just random. It's just random selection. You know what I mean? So like when I go in and I read somebody's profile, I'm like, okay, I know this person does X, Y, and Z, and I can help them here, there, and there. I identify where I can help them first, or I think I can help first. And then I'll ask, I'll verify. So like those are my steps. Number one, can I help? Number two, and let me verify. Does this person still work here? Is this person struggling in that area? These are some of the common problem areas that I know of. are they experiencing those things? And then I apply like a 70-30 rule where I just ask like 30%. I'll do asking the questions and do most of the listening, right? And then I'll check my boxes. And it's like, if I can't help them, I'll refer them somebody. Hey, I'll invite them onto the podcast. Let's do a podcast. Let's talk.
Okay.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So what's your feeling with that? Because obviously, I think in your space it's a little bit different than mine. But so when you're doing the coaching aspect, do you feel like people are fairly aware? So obviously, you're talking to people who are more entrepreneurial, that kind of stuff. Do you feel like most of them have an awareness that they need help?
Yeah, so like that's one part of it, right? But then like it's like you said, it's social media, and that's why I feel like there's a soft pull because it's like, oh, how much are you gonna charge me? Because I know I need the help,
Yeah.
right? The other thing is like timing, right? So it's like, oh, right now is not a good time, or I don't have the time. A lot of people are aware. They are super aware, and that's what I look for, right? Like, and I asked them, I'll start the conversation out. Where do you think coaching will be helpful to you?
Yeah.
Right? And then when they answer that question, it'll be something more along the lines of, well, I tried X, Y, and Z in the past, and this didn't work, that didn't work, but I've always wanted to try this, and I think I just need some support in this area,
That's
right?
awesome. Okay. Yeah. See, that's totally different from the financial side. Like, what would your guess be on people who are aware that they need help financially?
Oh, yeah, I would say, and just because I know, like some financial
Um,
advisors, I'd say like 0%,
yeah.
right? Is it like 0%? A lot of people are like, well, no, I
Yeah.
don't
So
need help here.
about 4% of our population
Okay.
actually makes it to retirement. Like they
Wow.
retire with dignity. Okay. That means not living in your kid's house, not having your kids wipe your butt when you go and you need long-term care help and you have challenges and
Yeah.
you not just trying to live off of Social Security, that's $1,600 or $2,000 a month, but so only about 4% of our population actually makes it to retirement, which is interesting. So that's a 96% failure rate. So just I was comparing this to COVID the other day,
That's
right?
huge, though.
99 point, however you feel about COVID, whatever,
Yeah.
99.8% success ratio, but the world knows about it and everybody stops to make sure that they're safe. But a 96% failure rate in retirement, like actually living with dignity, not having to have your kids wipe your butt, and everybody's failing, but nobody knows about it.
What?
And in fact, if you ask them, they will tell you they're doing okay because our standard of living now has become, I pay my bills on time, I'm doing okay financially.
Right, 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 right.
So that quick pitch and that aspect doesn't work because they don't even realize there's a problem, right? There's 5 levels of awareness. They don't even know that there's a problem and that they're falling behind.
Yeah.
So the beautiful part about that in the marketing aspect is that allows us to come in from an educational platform and teach them, but we've got to bring awareness that they're
Tell me about that. Tell me about the 5 levels of awareness.
So I probably should have written it down or had it on me, but the first is that there's literally no awareness whatsoever, right? So
Okay.
they're completely oblivious, which is where most people are. They think that because they're paying their bills, maybe they're putting a couple $100 a month away that they're going to be able to retire.
Okay.
But if you look at the average, our generation, millennials, we'll need probably $4 to $5 million to actually be able to retire, and nobody is on pace for that. Okay?
Wow.
So the next level of awareness is that they realize that there's a problem. Okay. The third is that they realize that there's a problem and they know that there's a solution. The fourth is that they know what the solutions are. And the fifth is that they're actually taking action. So where you find most people is probably in 2 and 3, where they realize there's a problem, they realize that you might be the solution, and so you can offer them a solution and then get them to step 5 to start taking action, right?
Right.
But where I find them is in step 1 most of the time, where they think that they're doing well financially. They might even have $100,000 or $200,000, 3, 4, 5, maybe $1 million set aside, but they don't realize that they're actually not on pace.
Right.
But they think that they're doing well because compared to their peer group, they're making the most money, they've got the most money saved, so they feel like they're doing well, but in reality, they're not.
Yeah,
So think
yeah.
about this. So with the 4% rule, okay, so this is a golden rule in the financial industry. You can live
Okay.
off of 4% of whatever you have saved in retirement. So if you're a millionaire, you have $1 million saved,
Yeah.
you now have to live off of $40,000 a year before taxes.
Right. That's crazy.
That's crazy,
That's
right?
crazy. Yeah.
So
That's
if
crazy.
you don't have $1 million saved, you're living on less than $40,000 a year
Yeah.
pre-tax. It doesn't work, right?
So let me ask you, do you think it's that people are waiting for Social Security or something? It's like maybe that's what a dependency is, like a pension from a job and then Social Security. The two of those
No,
combined, they
because
feel
those
like
were that was gone with the baby boomer generation, right? They were the ones that had the rug pulled out from underneath them because they were promised by all these companies, you work for us for 30, 40 years, we'll give you the gold watch and the pension and you can retire.
right,
And now all of that's gone. If you don't work for the government and you're not a teacher,
right,
that's gone. And even if it is there, most of the people I asked, so we had a firefighter, right? And he's like, oh, well, when I retire, I get 75% of my income. I'm like, okay, great. Well, can you live off of 75% of your income? He's like, no. I'm like,
yeah,
then why do you think you're okay? And for most people, it's 30, maybe 40% of their income
yeah,
when they retire. And then the challenge being is the way that they're saving it, it's in an environment that's literally a taxable time bomb, which now impacts Social Security. So now they're getting taxed on 85% of their Social Security. So they're not getting the money that they thought they were going
that's
to get
crazy.
there. They're
Yeah,
getting heavily taxed in because it looks like they're making too much money. Now they're having to pay for all of their the stuff as they're getting older, as far as their Medicare and Medicaid and all of those kinds of things. So they just don't know. It's
yeah,
complete unawareness. So it's not even, I don't even know if they think that they have a plan. The worst part is they think that they don't even have a plan,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
That's crazy. Yeah.
So it's even a step back from that.
Kiyosaki talks about that. I think he wrote this book. I follow him a lot too. He talks about Who Took My Pension, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's I don't know, man. $1 million. If you want to save up a million, it takes you 30 years to save $1 million. I think people could do it, but they're not thinking about it. They're more thinking about just right now, right?
Yeah. And and so if you think about that too, right, that's $40,000 in today's dollars.
Yeah,
What is $1 million worth 30 years from now? It's maybe $300,000 and now you're talking what, $1,200 a month or
yeah,
$12,000 a year that they're living off of an income. So we're not even talking about inflation. We're not talking about the taxes that are coming out.
yeah,
So if you're in a taxable area, let's say you're in a 401k or IRA, well, what happens? So there's a couple different areas that we look at for taxes, right? How are we doing with our healthcare? How's our healthcare system right now? We doing good? Not so
no,
good?
yeah, not
Not
too
so
good.
good. Okay.
Not too good.
How are we doing with Social Security?
Definitely
Is that
not too good.
not too good? Okay. How are we doing economically with our debt? Okay, so the three main areas that would refer to taxes. So do you think taxes are going to go up in the future
Yeah,
or
they're gonna
do
go
go
up.
down?
Yeah, Biden's gonna make them go up.
Whoever's
predict-
in office, we're going to have to because we've
Yeah,
got these huge debts and we've got these things that we need to fix that we're
right.
not taking care of now because we've been robbing the piggy bank. We've been kicking it down the line.
Printing
So now
cash.
in 30 years from now, what happens if they say taxes are 40, 50, 60%? 70, we've had 90% tax in the high income tax bracket. So if you have that $1 million saved and now it's 50% tax bracket, well, that's only actually $500,000
Yeah,
because they're going to take half of it. So if you're not in a tax-free bracket and tax advantage bracket,
yeah,
you're and if you believe that taxes are going to go up in the future. Now, if you think taxes are going to go down, then stay in your tax deferred bracket. But I would think if you ask most people, they're going to say we're going to be in a higher tax bracket in the future.
right. There are, I think, inflation-proof vehicles where people can put their money, and they can protect themselves against
Yeah.
future inflation. I know that. I also know that from a marketing standpoint, those five that you talked about, those five levels of unawareness, I mean, that's like a 5-point marketing touch point, right? To keep somebody, I guess, not just to help them become aware, but to help them increase awareness. And then they have to change the people that they're hanging out with. Because that peer group, right? It's like that mindset of like, yeah, I'm okay. And then they wind up in a nursing home. Or yeah, I'm okay. And then they, God forbid, get hurt and become disabled, right? It's like you have to be able to be around people who are saving money too and creating future retirement plans. You know what I mean? Just so you can, because the game is always changing, right? Like you said, every administration is going to change, so taxes are going to go up. So it's like it's a little tricky too because as our generation, we feel like we have all the time in the world, but we don't.
Yeah.
Time flies. So like, how do you attack that, right? Like, how do you save for that? Like that's another tricky thing that I think the education part. Do you do any kind of like workshops or like do you do anything like that?
Yeah, I have to because people don't have the awareness, right? So if you can't help make them aware, then they can't even make those decisions because they don't see a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I would want to, if you could add me or like invite me to one of your workshops. I just want to sit there and just like listen. You
Actually,
know,
that's what I wanted to send you. I was trying to send you that book, so you
oh, is
got.
that right?
That's what I was trying to send you. So you got to give
Okay.
me something where I can send that to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that. No, because I think it's big, man, and I think it's just for some people who actually want it. Not everybody's gonna want it. People have to seek it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so
Definitely.
for me, that's I don't want to say I'm an empath, but I have a lot of empathy.
Hmm.
So I feel bad for people that don't get it. In the beginning, that was probably the hardest part for me coming into this industry was I want to save everybody, but like, did you ever see the movie The Guardian
No,
with
I haven't seen that one.
such a good movie? So there's one point where um, they're basically these oh my gosh, coast guards, and so they go out and they rescue people, right? So these people are drowning to death,
Yeah.
and these coast guards are coming out. But the challenge is when people are in stress, right? When they're drowning, they will literally kill the person that's trying to help them,
Oh
right?
wow.
Yeah, because they don't know. They're just trying to grab onto something so they can breathe.
Yeah.
They're not in their consciousness. They're fighting. They're in that fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And so one of the parts is he's talking. They're like going through these drills, right? And the guy grabs onto the guy's back, and he's like kind of drowning. He has to elbow him in the face, right? Like the guy he's trying to rescue, he has to elbow him in the face, so
Wow.
he stops fighting him, so he can actually like save his life, right?
Right.
But coming towards the end of the movie, I think it's Cutton and Ashton Kutcher, I think, are in that movie. And so Ashton is the new guy on the block, and the other guy's like the guy who's been around a long time. He's developing him, right? And Ashton turns to him and he goes, "Hey, so what's your number?" He goes, "What's your number?" And the veteran turns back and goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, tell me your number. Like, I want to know the number." And he says some obscure number like 24 or something, right? And so Ashton's like trying to like 24. He's like, "Okay, that's good, I guess. Like you saved 24 people's lives. Like,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess that's okay." And then he goes, "No, no, no. 24. That's the number that I couldn't save. I didn't keep track of the other number."
That's how
And
you
so
feel.
that's how I feel sometimes, where I'd sit down and, then that person passes, like come to find out 2, 3 years later, that person passes away or whatever, and we didn't end up putting something in place. Those are the ones you remember more than the ones that you save.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
so I have a lot of empathy for that, but at some point, they've got to be a part of their own rescue.
They gotta want it. They gotta seek it
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you have the option, right? Like you're floating, they're drowning. If they're trying to pull you down, and like this is the same thing with your peer group, right? You can choose to hold on to them and drown yourself, or
Right.
sometimes you gotta let some of them go so that you can live.
Yeah.
But you gotta be willing to let go sometimes
Yeah.
if they're not willing to fight with you.
Got it. No, you're 100% right. You're on the money. How do you see the industry changing? It's like with this all this, digital going on right now, and I think the older generation, there's a digital divide for that older generation also. So it's like, we're doing Zoom now, but a lot of seniors or a lot of like, I want to say 50 plus, right? People who are closer to retirement age, say 55 and up, they're not really, on technology like that. They don't want to be really so much. So how does the industry uh, approach those people? Like, how do you see that changing in the next 10 years or so?
The nice part is I don't know if we've had to that much because they were forced to learn Zoom through their kids and their grandkids and heck, doctor's appointments now are online,
Telehealth. Yeah.
right? A
Yep.
lot of the health stuff is online. And so the nice part is now because of COVID, so, and I would never want to relive another COVID ever, so
Yeah.
don't take that the wrong way, but it did
Yeah.
help our industry in that aspect and it forced everybody to learn technology that before they were fighting. So even that age group, they will still do Zooms. They might have some trouble logging on or whatever it might be, but
Right.
they're still doing that. So, but yeah, obviously there's people that fight it that don't want to change, and nice part is we can still meet in person if we need to,
Yeah. And
But yeah, I feel less resistance because of COVID on learning digitally.
sure, sure. Are you guys growing the team out there in Vegas? Are you
Oh
gonna?
yeah. Well, yeah, and what's helped us is we've been able to expand even nationally in that we've been able to recruit people out of state because now all of our training is digital.
Yep.
So they can hop on from wherever they're from, which has actually really helped us expand. So our particular company, WFG, they're up like 60% or something over the last year
Nice.
because of our ability to be able to do that. Whereas before, I would think about taking that person, I might recruit them, but I would send them into a different office. And
Hmm.
now we're trying to like figure out how to train them. And now they just hop on our training that we already have. So it's actually been really helpful.
Yeah.
How about you in the coaching space? Do you think it's been
Yeah,
helpful?
I think it's so like my whole dream is to be a digital nomad. I want to be living
Okay.
on an island somewhere, you know what I mean? And just
Okay.
coaching some, from an island or, the coaching is fun, but I kind of really want to just travel more. I want to be
Mm,
international. I want to be somewhere like a Caribbean island or Fiji or something, you know what I mean? So it
so
definitely,
agree.
you got a lot of coaches now who are digital, right? And I think what Tony Robbins did recently, one of his events, he had like
Yeah.
all these, I think what was it, teleprompters or cameras, and
Yep.
it was amazing. And I think that's where we're headed. So it's it's, again, people have to seek it out. They gotta want it, right? You can put any price tag you want on it, and people will pay for it, so
Mm,
long as they find the value themselves. They have to find it. You can't pitch the value. You know what I
right.
mean? Like I don't really pitch the value. I'm like, oh, if you want it, you want it. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
But not,
Right.
you know what I mean? On to the next one. You
Yeah.
know, I'm chilling.
Exactly.
And I hope to be doing better. God
Yeah.
willing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's good. I
Yeah,
hope so too.
for sure. So this was great, man. What is some, I guess, from an entrepreneurial side and also from an employee side, right? What are some things that you could just tell people right now, maybe like that has helped you along the way and continues to help you, um, so that they don't lose hope, right? But that they can also think about saving money,
Mm,
because this is what this is about, right? Saving
yeah.
money. So like, or creating some kind of a retirement plan for themselves. Entrepreneurs, it's not so easy. There is no pension plan. There is no social security, right?
Well, now there isn't for being an employee either. So I think that's why it's switching, and a lot of people are looking at becoming an entrepreneur because even as an employee, there's no guarantees anymore where there used to be, where you would invest 20, 30 years of your life and then that company would take care of you. But that's gone. That's long gone.
Yeah,
Imagine the opposite being in Henry Ford's time, where everybody's an entrepreneur,
yeah,
and he's trying to recruit people to become an employee
right,
and work for him. And they're like, why would I invest my life working for your company when I have my own? So I
right.
think we're heading, I don't know if we'll ever get back that far,
Hmm.
but I think we're headed back that way where people are realizing entrepreneurship, that employee doesn't really work because, you're stuck. Like, you can't determine if you make more money, and your boss literally cannot afford to give you a 10% raise a year. So
Hmm.
you're going to go behind. But I think a big thing is you got to look at happiness. If somebody's making 60 grand a year and they're a school teacher and they get summers off and they get to spend all the time they want with their family and they're happy,
Hmm.
don't worry about the money. Like, just find happiness, find fulfillment. And there's a lot of people who are working that are not happy, and
Hmm.
maybe they need to look at entrepreneurship. So I think that would be the biggest thing. Back to the fulfillment aspect of doing a financial plan too. Do a life plan that is your fulfillment. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and that's why I love the Bezos post that I did. He was talking about work-life balance, but it's work-life harmony.
yeah,
So figure out what that is for you and your family and what you need,
yeah.
and can save. So make sure you figure that into the solution as well. But do it for the happiness. Don't do it because you feel you need another BMW that doesn't make you any happier.
Right.
But if the BMW makes you happy, then make more money so you can have the
Yeah,
BMW too. Like,
right, right.
I wish there was a more clear defined answer, but I think
No, if that's from
fulfillment
your
has,
perspective. That works. That
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Okay, we're gonna play real quick. We're gonna play a quick game. It's called
Okay.
hands down the lightning round. Okay, hands down the lightning round. So I ask you three questions, and you tell me your bottom line about these three questions. Right?
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Should be
Your
tricky.
opinion, your truth, whatever it is for you. Okay.
Okay. So I'm answering like as fast as possible, just raw.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, fast as possible. Doesn't have to be one word though. Just your
Okay.
truth. Right?
Okay.
Okay, so you are the owner of Mckensy Long Industries, right? You're hiring people on, and you have two options you give your employees. Which one would you give your employees? One, to own a share of the company, or to get annual bonuses.
I would prefer shares personally.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to go in detail on that?
Yeah, can you tell me why, please?
Okay. It said lightning round. So I'm like, okay, how quick is the next question coming? Because I think when somebody owns something,
Right.
they take better care of it.
Got it.
And so, same thing in our industry. They give us basically, we own our book of business, we own our
Yeah.
agency, that kind of stuff. And I think people, like, you go back to convincing them.
Yeah.
think you have to be convinced to want a bonus. I don't think you have to be convinced when you own something and you can leave it to future generations.
Yeah.
At least not for the people that I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
I want somebody who's going to invest in it the way that I've invested into it and that wants to do something big. Like you mentioned, not just come in and make $15 an hour or something like that. Right? I think you treat it differently when you own it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Like a renter versus an owner of a home. Yeah,
Right.
for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So shares, right? Okay. Second question. You're in the year 2035 right now, right? 2035. You have two options. You can go vehicle transportation is either subterranean or it's in the air. Which option are you choosing?
I would lean towards in the air, but that scares me a little bit too. People can't drive in 2 dimensions, let alone 3. So that'll be interesting.
So a little
But
bit of
hopefully
air
we'll be more
traffic.
automated by then.
Yeah, hopefully, right? Okay.
Subterranean would be cool, but I think you're going to be confined like you would, same way with trains right now, right?
Yeah, yeah. Elon Musk, he's working on that Hyperloop, so it's like I don't
It'd be
know. He's
cool.
doing it. Yeah, he's doing it. I wonder if he's going to do that for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd definitely be cool for if you're transporting stuff, like to get trucks off the road and big merchandising, that kind of stuff. I could definitely see.
Yep.
But
Okay.
personally, I'd rather be in the air, I guess.
In the air. Okay. Okay. So the last question for that one, if you're going to be in the air, would you have a pilot or would you want to fly it yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
I got the oh.
Because I have a little bit of that side where I love the unknown. I've got a little bit of that adrenaline junkie. I think I got that as building race cars.
Yeah.
So I think I would like to drive it myself. But then the other side of me goes, well, you could probably get more done if somebody else was driving and you could do the rest and leave it up to a professional. So I don't know. I'm torn on that one. Maybe
Okay.
a combination of both. If I owned it, I could hire somebody to come in and do it when I want them to, and then if I wanted the adrenaline rush, I could do it myself, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I think of Travolta, right? Because Travolta can fly and he can also be a passenger. So
Yep.
I'm kind of stuck like where you are, right? I'm like, I don't know if I want to fly it, right?
Okay.
Definitely. I got to figure that part out for myself, anyways, right? And finally, Mackenzie, what is your bottom line, right? What is your reoccurring truth that no matter what, in spite of any setback, you go back to this truth and it propels you forward? What's that for you? What's your bottom line?
Just being a good dad. I want to be a good dad and a good husband.
Yeah.
So that's really what's driven me. And when we go back to having the resources and having the time, that's really what it came back to. Is
Nice.
my dad had to work a lot, and he wasn't always able to kind of be around. And I wish he would have been around more. And then my parents were always making decisions based on money.
Right.
Right? And I saw how that kind of drove them apart. Most divorces are caused by money.
Yep.
Most stress in the body is caused by money.
Yep.
Those kinds of things. So I just want to have the resources and the time, especially with kids nowadays. My kids will know I can be wherever you are, whenever I want to be there. So you better be on your best behavior because I'm going to randomly show up. Right?
Yeah.
I need the freedom. And if you could figure out that flying thing, that would be
Yeah.
better too, right?
Yeah, you get there faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's really for me, and I want my living space, my house, my that kind of stuff. I want that to be the spot where all my kids go because I want to be able to control or watch who they're around and the influences that they're having. And
We've got that in common.
yeah,
We've definitely got that in common.
I figured we're a lot alike in a lot of areas, so that's
Yeah,
awesome.
for sure.
You too?
That's amazing. Yeah, that's where I'm at too, right? That's like exactly it. My kids, controlled environment, and being as influential as possible, and hopefully they can influence the future generation. So we
And I
definitely
want to set a
relate
good
there.
example, like how can you preach to do something? You can be whatever you want to be in life, but not me. I'm stuck as an employee, but you can do whatever you want.
Right.
So that's a lot of what drives me. If I've ever thought about quitting or doing something different or just stressed or just like, man, is this all worth it?
Right.
That's going to be really the conversation of being able to have with my kids of this is what I went through. And,
Yeah, for sure. How old are your kids?
I don't have any,
Oh, not yet.
not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, trying to
Yeah.
work on that here soon.
No, you're living in the moment though. You're definitely living in the moment.
Yeah, but it's weird. That's driven me even since I was in my 20s. I started a savings account for a kid that I still don't have yet,
Ah. Huh. Okay. So just a matter of time then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, this was a lot of fun, man. Definitely send me that book. I'm gonna send you my info so you can send me that book.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Where do people find you?
I'm on all the social media platforms. Thank God Mckensy is pretty unique. So
Yeah.
you, as long as you
Mckensy.
search Mckensy, you can find me on all the platforms. So,
All right. Facebook, social media, Twitter. Are you on Twitter?
you know what?
Instagram?
I haven't. Are you on Twitter? Do you
No.
like
Hell
it?
no. No good. No, thank you.
No, no. I'm on Instagram. I'm starting to get into TikTok. So I've
Okay.
got some good ideas for some fun. But you know what though? I'm trying to figure out how to like still be funny on TikTok, but keep it a little bit business oriented because I have some funny ideas that I want to do, but
Yeah.
they're not all PG. So
Okay. Yeah. Good
I
luck with
wonder if I
that.
can bring some personality into
Yeah.
that aspect and have that be funny too. So I don't know. We'll see.
No, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. TikTok's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Are you on TikTok too?
No, I won't do it. I'm too shy for TikTok. Like that's one
Okay.
thing I will not do.
So you're loving this era right now with being able to be separate but still with people.
Yeah, there's just
You're in
certain
your
things.
prime.
Yeah, certain things I won't do. I won't do TikTok. Like I just won't do it. I don't think it fits my personality, but I love
Really, you
watching
seem
people do it.
funny.
Nah, not me, bro. Like,
No?
uh-uh.
Okay.
This is all like how I am, just naturally. If I were to
Okay.
go onto TikTok, I'd have to become a new person,
No, no,
and I
you
don't
can
know
be
how to do
yourself.
that.
There's some people on there too that are just like, hey, look, you've been scrolling for a long time.
Yeah.
You can stop the scrolling, like go to bed. You can bring the
Right.
psychology aspect to it too, because people need to hear that sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to find fulfillment here.
Right.
Get off.
Get off. Yeah. But
Yeah,
it looks like a lot of fun. It looks like a lot of fun.
it is. I
Yeah.
mean, I haven't started it, but I've been trying to research it a little bit to get more into that. And then, so that's my next one. And then also YouTube. I want to get more on YouTube as well.
Ah, yeah, definitely. So this is, yeah, YouTube is addictive. Like,
Is it?
there's just so much more content on YouTube. I think I'm more on YouTube than I am on Netflix.
Okay.
There's just a lot more that I can use, that I
Nice.
can like learn, consume, versus Netflix. Just kind of like you just, I don't know. It's like the idiot box.
Gotcha.
You know
Yeah,
what I
I
mean?
try to lean towards those movies like The Last Dance. Have you watched The Last Dance?
Ah, no, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you got to see that. So good with Jordan. So many good coaching aspects in there, and the way that he coached different people, and the way Jordan went from being very selfish to like team orient. Oh, so much good stuff.
Okay, I'll look
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
There's other good movies and stuff that you can watch on there too about, The Founder. If you haven't watched The Founder,
Yeah.
another good one.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
think it depends, like you said, what you're looking for, because you can find a lot of garbage on YouTube too.
So
So
that's
what
my
do you?
problem, right? Because I'll go to Netflix and I'll just watch trash. Like I'm a big kung fu guy. I love kung
Okay.
fu, so I'll just watch
Okay.
the whole genre. You know
I
what I mean?
got you.
And I'll just binge. But then
Okay.
if I go to like YouTube, what I like to listen to Lewis House. I like to listen
So
to
good.
some podcasts, right?
Okay. Have
I
you
was
checked out Ed Milet yet?
I love Ed Milet. That's the
Yeah.
guy. Yeah,
So he's
that's the guy.
actually, yeah, he's one of the big guys in WFG actually. I don't
Yeah,
know if you
he's a
knew that or not.
beast. I
Yeah.
think he's more for people who are like gonna talk about God. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And apply biblical principles to business.
Yeah.
You know, he's not for everybody,
Dude, and what's
right?
crazy is he's just like that in person.
Is he really? Have you met him?
Yeah, it's not a persona. Yeah, I've been around him a bunch. I'm actually in his group, so I've got a chance to meet him a bunch of times. And dude's just as real.
Humble guy, real
Oh,
humble, like
yeah,
regular dude, right? And he really struggled. He has a great story, right?
yeah.
You know, as a matter of fact, now that you mentioned that, him and Tony Robbins. So like Tony Robbins has a, I think he bought his first island when he was like 29 or something. And then I think Ed Milet, he's on a beach. He lives on a beach, and that's
There's a
what
bunch
always,
of properties. Yeah,
right? I've always wanted that kind of lifestyle. So that's why I was like, I'm not worried too much about the whole digital age and the virtualization of everything because I've always wanted that kind of lifestyle.
yeah.
You know,
And then you got TJ too. It's TJ. Yeah.
which one?
No, Thomas. Oh my gosh, what the heck is his last name? You
TD.
gotta want it as bad as you can breathe. Thomas.
Oh, Thomas. I know you're talking about.
Last name.
E.T. Eric Thomas.
E.T. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
good. He's got.
He's
some
for a
good-
different crowd. Again, that's for a whole
Yeah.
different crowd of people. You know,
Yeah.
he's not for everybody
Yeah.
because he's hitting hard.
Yeah.
He's
Which
hitting
I
hard.
like. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like different strokes for different folks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's the crazy thing about our digital age is that you no longer really have to go out and buy books and seminars and all of these things. It's all there if you want it. So those
Yeah.
people who have excuses of I'm not technologically savvy or whatever, like It's just an excuse. Everything is out there if you want it. We're no longer seeking information. Now the challenge is we're looking for wisdom, because there's so much information out there, and there's so many people that are doing fake stuff, fake IG accounts, and all that other crap. So
I think you got to apply it, though.
We go on for another 2 hours. But
yeah. I mean, we could do this anytime, man. We could do this anytime.
This is good, man. I appreciate you. This is awesome.
Same here, man. Let's keep in touch, right? Ladies and gentlemen, look out for Mckensy Long on social media. His content is super funny. It's got me.
Is it good? I feel like I'm really serious sometimes, so I'm glad it's funny too.
No, it makes you think, and it's funny, for sure.
Okay, good.
This was a lot of fun. This was the Bottom Line Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, where we say what we mean, and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line.